into argument. And it's one of my favorite aims of writing because to me it's the most useful. I've said all year that I want you to be good communicators. I want you to be able to represent yourself well on paper and in discussion, because to me, it doesn't matter how smart you are, or it is about people listening to you and understanding you and people buying into the things that you're trying to tell them or trying to convince them of. So when we talk about argument, we're not really talking about arguing like a fight. And I know a lot of you have been home with siblings over the last few weeks, and I know there's been some fights in this house just because we're all on top of each other here. But when we talk about argument, we're really talking about persuasion. And how can you get someone to buy into what you believe? Or how can you convince someone to do what you want them to do? Or to think differently even, or to act in a way that you want them to. So when we talk about argument, we're really talking about persuasion. And if Miss Berner would love this, but if you really want to study argument, you study Aristotle. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, he had it down. The art of argument, he studied that as much as he studied philosophy. So he had these brilliant ideas that were different and new, but he knew that in order to really get people to buy in, he had to be good at argument. And he kind of talked a lot about how an argument, you can think of it in terms of a triangle, okay? And he said basically that at the top of that triangle is the speaker or the presenter or the writer. It depends on how you're choosing to present your argument. But when we talk about the speaker, we're talking about like who is doing the presenting, all right? So we talk speaker. We also have to consider audience. So anytime you're presenting an idea, you're really kind of have to consider, who am I presenting it to? Is this the group I need to be talking to or be writing to about an idea? Or you need to ask yourself, okay, who's most important? Even though I have a big group of people, who's most important in hearing this argument that I have? So when we think about really making an argument, we need to think about ourselves as the speaker. And if you're reading, then you're reading it asking yourself, who's the speaker of this close text? Or if you're listening to a speech, who is this speaker? When we talk about audience, it's who are they presenting to? Even though I might pick it up or you might pick it up and you're a 7th grader, you probably aren't the intended audience. Who was the intended audience? And then we have over here kind of I'm going to put the claim or the idea. I wish you guys were with me because you know how I love to build on words. What other words mean the same thing as claim? Thesis, proposal. Okay, so when we think about argument, we really have to consider, even as we read it, or even as we are giving one, who's the speaker here? Who am I presenting to? Who are they presenting to? And then what's their big ideas? What evidence do they have? What reasons do they give? So when we look at argument, Aristotle talked about these 3 things being what really a strong argument, the foundation of it is. And he talks about speaker, and you're going to hear the term ethos. He talks about audience, and you're going to hear the term pathos. And when he talks about the idea or the claim, you're going to hear logos. And these are what we call, and I'm going to write this up here, the rhetorical appeals. And if you think about this term, rhetoric or rhetorical, you may have heard of a rhetorical question. As a matter of fact, a lot of you guys like to start your essays with rhetorical questions. Questions that don't have a yes or no answer. Why does it seem that in middle school kids struggle with friendship? That's a rhetorical question. There's not a set answer. It's a discussion, but you might have your opinion on it. Or are teenagers today more impulsive than they were 20 years ago? That's a discussion. It's a rhetorical question, meaning there's not a set answer. It's worth arguing or discussing, okay? So when we talk about rhetorical appeals, the appeal, when you try to appeal to someone, you're trying to get them to kind of buy in or to connect. And that's what these rhetorical appeals are. How do we make an argument using our understanding of the speaker, knowing what we need to know about our audience, and understanding how logos works? How can we use these ideas to present or to get the things that we want or to get people understanding the things we want them to understand. That's what we're going to be covering this quarter.